Welcome to the WA Property Q&A, the podcast where I explore the ins and outs of buying property in Western Australia. I'm your host, Peter Fletcher, and each week I interview local property experts to help you to develop a deep understanding of the nuances of buying property in WA. From market trends to legal considerations, no topic is off limits. But before we dive in, a friendly reminder. While we provide valuable information, it's important to note that nothing discussed in this podcast should be construed as personal investment advice. Always remember to seek the appropriate professional advice for your specific circumstances. Now, let's get started and unlock the secrets to successful property buying in WA. So, welcome to this week's guests, one only Ben Archibald. Now, Ben and I have a long history, and the history goes back to, what year was it, Ben?
It was probably 1998, was it? Maybe 90 or maybe 2000.
Was it 2000? Did you go to the 2000 party that we had, the New Year's Eve party? Were you at that?
Look, I think it was a party, Pete. I probably would have been there. I'm known to like a good party.
So Ben's real estate career, that was, we'll call it the year 2000, started when he just finished studies at Curtin University as a B-Bus or B-Com.
Yep, B-Com in property. Yep.
And we were then Ben's first job out of university.
Second actually.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, well, first job I don't like to count though. It was a bit of a crash and burn.
A crash and burn. Okay,
yeah,
well,
yeah, very inexperienced and green and you took me under your wing. So
yeah. So Ben worked with me at Peter Fletcher Realty, I think it was called then.
Yes. Yep.
And as a sales rep, and look, it was a tough market back then, wasn't it, Ben? You know, like it wasn't.
Yeah, there weren't certainly a very, very contrasting conditions. Houses didn't fly out the door. They were 6 weeks of hard marketing to get a run on the board.
Yeah, and lots of price reduction.
And pricing was sensitive, and you had to get your appraisals right.
Yeah. And from there, you, I remember a really, really fruitful conversation for both of us, and that's when you decided to go on to use your degree to go on and become a valuer. I think you went to Glendinning's, is that right?
That's right. I got a call up from a friend I'd studied with and had a job opportunity, and it was just more of a lifestyle. I had the choice of taking a salary or taking a commission-based wage and certainty and that sort of thing. So, and it was probably I think I knew my heart was probably in valuations and analysis and that sort of thing. Yes. Although now, I think real estate is also a game. I think you get back to when you've had life's experiences, and it makes you into a much better negotiator.
Yes.
So I think I could actually do it well now.
I think you'd be excellent, Ben.
But
yes. We'll talk about
your
recent
buyer's agency exploits.
Yes, and so we sort of fast forward 20 odd years to.
I've been in valuations for just shy of 24 years, I think it is.
Mm.
So I've seen all the ups and downs. The 07-08 market crash was certainly educational, working in the western suburbs at the time, and really interesting now in this current climate. Just being very aware of what goes up must come down.
In theory, yes. We'll talk about that.
Yep.
And now you're a senior valuer, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm.
You haven't got as many grey hairs as I expected you'd have.
Still got a few. But senior valuer analyst for Preston, Rowe, Patterson. I've been there for about 2 years, and really loving relishing in the challenge of what we do there in commercial and residential and rental, retail. We get our we're a smaller firm, so a lot of our valuers get a lot more multidisciplinary experience, not just doing houses each day. So, yeah.
So when it comes to putting a price on a property, you're something of an expert, you'd have to say.
Well, you'd think so, Pete. Look, in this market, I feel probably more uneasy about putting prices on things than I ever have.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact.
Why is that?
So normally valuers are creatures of evidence and market data, but that's increasingly hard to get accurately and timely. So we know that when you go for a bank loan, the bank wants the valuation in a very fast time frame. We've often got maybe minutes to literally finish off a valuation and get the right figure on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it can come down to a phone call with an agent, a colleague, a discussion with somebody that gives you the final nod to put a figure on a property, and that's more nervous now because of how uncertain. We just don't know where the market is going week by week. Almost, it just seems to be vertical.
So tell us a little bit about the work you do for banks. The banks rely on this valuation for their security purposes.
Correct. We do about 40% of our business is mortgage valuations for banks and lending institutions, and in terms of residential houses, it's mostly comes up when people are refinancing, borrow a bit of money or buy something, or most commonly when they're purchasing. So you'll see that a valuation will get done is normally the last item to tick off your finance approval. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it is the valuer that can literally get you your house or not.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because it's often, finance is approved, Yahoo, just waiting on the valuation. The valuation comes through and it doesn't come up to Val, and so they don't get the loan.
Yeah, that's they will generally rely solely on that nod. So we're very aware when we come to disagree with a price someone's paid, or what we call pull something back, is we are very aware of the responsibility we hold when that hammer comes down.
Ben, do you see the offer and acceptance?
Yes, that's actually pretty important, because we actually look over the offer and acceptance quite carefully, see if there's any counter offers, look at where the buyer resides, if they're in the East Coast, or so we look at some of those factors to build the picture of the buyer profile, the vendor profile, try and work out how the transaction has come about.
What's the purpose of that?
We're trying to look at areas where someone might have overpaid, or circumstances which might lead them to potentially under or overpay. Related party might be same surname or something like that. So they're all the little checks that you do as a valuer.
So can I just interrupt there, Ben?
Yep.
So if you saw on an offer and acceptance lots of counter offers, it would kind of give you some sort of comfort that the price ended up at the right spot simply because there was a negotiation.
Yeah. And what we've noticed in the recent 3 months or so is less of that. So
that does not at all surprise me.
No, typically you might be lucky to see, one counter offer, and then it's
because the counter offers are pretty much non-existent, because the agents are relying on multiple offers. So they're going back to all the buyers saying, you make your highest and best offers, and they just pick the one that's at the highest and best and take that.
So what you put, you hit the nail on the head. So at the moment, all that information that used to be on the offer that we could see the negotiation is now happening out there behind the veil of the buyer and the agent, and so we don't get to see any of that. So even more important these days to pick up the phone and talk to the agent. We pretty much have to do it on most transactions now to get if the agent doesn't meet you at the property to discuss it, you need to sort of know what's gone into and how it's, how many offers, because we're seeing people overpay regularly. So it's we just want to make sure they're not overpaying, by too much of a factor, and that's where we want to capture those.
So the question is, well, what does overpaying look like? And to paint a bit of a picture, I was talking to Jamie Harrington from Hub Residential.
Yes.
And Jamie said that it's not unusual to see the difference between the highest offer, or the offer that got accepted, and the next highest offer to be as high as much as 10%.
Yes.
So on a $2.5 million property, it could be the second best offer was at 2.5 and the winner was at 2.75.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's typical of the western suburbs, where you've generally got greater purchasing power, and they typically have just got greater funds behind them, so they're able to play around with more money effectively, and sometimes it just comes down to if they're prepared to pay a bit more, they will, if they've got it in their pocket. Yeah.
So you do a valuation in a western suburbs, scenario, and somebody's paid 2.75. Next closest offer was 2.5. Is this something that you'd ask the agent? What was the spread of offers? What did they look like?
Yeah, definitely.
And they would tell you that.
Sometimes, yeah. If they generally the agent is they're selling you the offer that's been accepted, and that it's it's fair, and that's it was good buying,
of course,
and that's the typical. So most valuers are pretty used to that, but we often they won't show us those offers, but most agents will happy to sort of say, I had 3 offers, I had one at this, and this one won out, but it was 20 grand higher. A little bit. You'll start to see at the moment with more people getting knocked back on finance because of their serviceability criteria getting tighter. Some buyers will take the lower, maybe take a lower offer that's maybe not subject to finance. So you might find that the offer that is successful is not necessarily the highest.
Yeah, that's a really good point, which is to say to buyers is. Make sure that the other parts of your offer are sharp.
Yeah.
Make sure your finance approval date is sharp. Make sure the amount of the loan is specified. Make sure that the bank is specified. Make it all clear. Present a pre-approval letter if you have one.
Yep.
Make your deposit a substantial deposit. All those things they add up for the seller to de-risk the transaction.
Yeah. And less sometimes when you've been out on the weekend and you might just happen to go through a home open, you hear these stories of my wife just found a house, we walked through it and we put an offer in. Unfortunately, those days are at the moment probably not quite there, because you've got to get all your ducks in a row well before 100%. The buying decision comes to pass, and that's maybe leading me on to the next point, which is what can you do to sort of arm yourself in this market if you happen to be trying to buy in the market. What can you do? Should we chat about it?
Yeah, what's your recommendation?
Well, first of all, my first point is I would only buy in this market if you're selling in this market. So
okay.
I think there's only because the market's so heated at the moment, you're going to be overpaying. And I think you can only, counteract that risk if you've got maybe something to sell. So you buy high, sell high.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking to buy at the moment, certainly wait till when do the RBA meet, Pete? Is it the 7th?
It's Melbourne Cup Day, Ben.
Yeah.
It's. I think it's
so.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think that'll have an impact?
Oh, look, I don't think it will, but I think they have indicated that the increased pressure of interest rates will start to bite as people's savings are drained. So people have been going through their savings, they've been getting by, but it's going to start to bite next year.
Mm-hmm.
So things might not be as hectic, and I'd be willing to bet that there'd be more stock on the market next year. What do you think?
Well, I'm completely bullet shy about making predictions.
Yeah.
Because in 2019, when was COVID? 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
So at the start of 2020, 2019, you felt like things were starting to improve. It was just
came
like
off a really low base in 2018.
It was just
horrible.
starting to we heard the term green shoots so often, and we saw some green shoots in 2019, the start of 2020, and then I remember going to a Westpac or a NAB forum that was the Real Estate Institute was there, and I think the Property Institute was there or something like. And it was all the indicators are it's going to go up nice and steady through 2020. And they said, but there's this little thing called this little thing called coronavirus. It's very viral, but not very deadly. It might have an impact. We don't know what impact it will have, but stay tuned.
Well, I'll be honest. Most of the impact that we heard about was more along the lines of the negative impact, wasn't it?
Well, completely.
It was going to be people are going to stop going out and spending. They're going to be conservative. I mean, it was
in April of that.
Couldn't have been more wrong.
April or May of that year, I sat down with my team and we had a open and frank conversation about the likelihood of mass redundancies, because all you could see was this cliff.
Work from home was not attractive, or didn't think it would work, did we?
It was just like the numbers just stopped. It was like, wow. And then the government just started hosing money into our bank accounts, and it was you just went from being, well, we're just doomed to we can't help but make profit, and then it just all sort of the engine spiraled up from there. And we had the perfect storm, and we're at just supply demand tug of war at the moment, aren't we? So. Well, so that's my long answer to what's my prediction. Well, I actually have no idea, Ben, but the way things are, the trajectory we're on is that it's going to keep on going up, but we've got this thing called interest rates, and we're just not sure.
Oh, look, definitely we'll keep going up. I'm more interested in the rate that it's going up, and maybe more about the stock and having a bit of choice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you can hold off till, defer a buying decision to when you've got. There's always another house. That's what I think my dad told me once. When you're buying there's always another house.
But there is, but if you stay out of the market, let's say you're in the market today at 600,000, and you stay out of the market for 12 months. In 12 months' time, it's going to cost you $660,000 to get back into the market. Same house. So, that is the reality. So, I know I'm very cautious about telling people. I don't tell people wait, because well, if they wait and then the market goes up by 10%, it's just cost them $60,000.
Yeah, it really comes down to the drivers of why they're buying in the first place. I think if it's a proper need, and we've already established they need to buy.
Yeah, but what about investors? Yeah, if you say to an investor, the market's pretty hot at the moment. I think there's going to be a correction, and the correction doesn't come, and the market goes up by 20%.
But the thing with investors they're not really. Yes, they're interested in capital growth, but their main concern, first and foremost, is rental. Now, if we have rents continuing to go up, even if the property market comes off, I think you'll find the rent market will stay up for a lot longer, because it's always a bit of a delay. There's potentially
there's very little supply, and there's lots of immigration.
Good 4 or 5 years of strong rents to come. Mm-hmm. So and I would say to investors, if you find something that's got a good return and you can get in at around the median house price for an area, or under the median house price, I think what's the median house price going to go up to? I think it's 670 or something.
I think it's over 7 now.
Yeah.
I think.
So if you can get in underneath that, or just something that's on a good rental return, I think definitely pull the trigger. So
yeah, okay. Ben, I want to talk about the factors that you take into account when you're valuing property, because like we've had some recent conversations about the process that you go through to value property, and we've already talked about that sort of pre-valuation checks that you do, but I think there's more there.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. How do you value a golf course? No, I'm joking, Ben. No. So, in all seriousness, what are the factors that you guys take into account aside from what's on the offer and acceptance?
Yeah. So, look, most of our valuers that are going out on the road each day doing valuations for banks, they don't get very long in a house. They generally only spend about 10 to 15 minutes at an inspection. Mm-hmm. But they're pretty highly tuned, and they're looking for, they're really just looking at a number of key factors. But obviously we get the land size and the living size, and we're looking at the location of the property and all those sorts of things, which are pretty obvious. But the main one is presentation and overall functionality. Now functionality might be just how does the house work for its end user, for its buyer. So, does the floor plan work? Now, sometimes a house can be 200 square metres, and another house with a different floor plan will sell at a lower price, simply because the floor plan's designed poorly.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about floor plans. So we had a conversation very recently about a property in City Beach that I was looking at on behalf of a client. By the photos online, beautiful.
Yeah.
It was seriously a stunning home.
Yep.
But you picked up some problems with the floor plans. What the floor plan? What were they?
So one of the things I've learnt to value, or that West Australians value highly, is their outdoor areas and their outdoor living spaces, and we also like to have the good old-fashioned barbie. When you've got a bit of room for a few mates to come around, or a few families, or you've got all your friends' kids that suddenly land, and you're trying to entertain them. So I'm looking for separation of living areas, so you've got different spaces for entertaining, just space for more than 4 or 5 people to entertain. So covered, protected from the wind. Now, some of the old houses in City Beach, the whole backyard's dominated by a 50-metre swimming pool, exaggerating, but they typically can be a bit hard to work around because you've taken up all your real estate outside with a massive pool. Just so you... But also, I guess, that was things like ceiling heights as well might be a factor. Some of these older renovated homes, they're still 28-core ceilings, and you're just feeling like you're boxed
Ceiling heights are a thing, aren't they?
Well, in the western suburbs, they really are.
Well, I think even... Like, I've been looking at some properties down in Baldivis for a client, and you step into a home that's, I think, what's the next step up? 32 course is a good...
So 31 is sort of the new standard now. 28's really...
is 28,
really
which is the old 8-foot ceilings that...
Yeah, that's your budget. If 31 is... Yeah.
If I can stand on tippy toes and touch it, that's an 8-foot ceiling.
Yeah. Right.
It's and it feels like the ceiling's falling in on you.
Well, yeah, it definitely, when you've got that feeling of space, people just feel more relaxed, and
gives a sense of volume, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And it lets him. You generally find that you have bigger windows as well. It lets him more light, and so look, and where you've got older renovated homes, ceiling heights sometimes aren't able to be changed very easily, so they get left.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else gets renovated, but you end up with these low ceiling heights. Look, I look at the hub of a house as well, like how the kitchen, which is generally the centre of the house, and the dining room and the living area, can it sort of open up and really, cater for a larger
And the
group of
one we're talking about, it didn't do that, did it? There was no real outdoor area, and the kitchen was separated from the dining and
fully separated. No sort of
so if
connectivity with the rest of the house.
So if you're in there preparing a meal, you are doing that on your own while everyone else is out drinking wine.
Yeah, and whilst I don't mind that if it's the room's large enough, when it's quite small and you can imagine getting 4 or 5 people in there of a school morning getting breakfast ready, for me it seems like it would be problematic.
And these things impact a home's value?
I think so. I think people, when they're actually looking to put their hard money on the line, they really do think about how a house will work for them, where their furniture's going. We hear the old saying when an agent says when the buyer starts to picture their furniture in the house, that's when you know they're really serious. Yeah, they're starting to
100%
how it works, and I think they would be, especially when they're making a big purchase like starting to get north of $2 or $3 million. I would be really considering functionality of your floor plan to be not just the type of bench tops and the fit out might be outstanding. But if the floor plan doesn't work, it really will cut you off at the knees.
Yeah. And it's funny you connected value, the value of a property, as in the dollar value of a property, and buyer demand, as in would a buyer shell out their hard-earned to purchase this product? And that's exactly right, because my client yesterday, when they saw through this property, both of those things that you've just mentioned, the lack of outdoor area and the lack of connection between the kitchen and the dining room, they raised that as an issue.
Yeah. And so it can either be an issue or an opportunity as well. So sometimes you look at a property and you see an opportunity to, because I thought about that massive, a big pool, and I thought, well, I could put a deck over a part of that. And actually utilise some of that outdoor area you'd otherwise taken up by the pool. Could I knock a wall out? Could I, are there things that I can do to improve it? So it could be an opportunity, especially for an investor if they're going through a property, might be a 4x1. How could I change the walk-in robe? I might be able to change that to an ensuite, or how can I get an extra? So look, valuers that are probably more experienced can really go through a house and think about all these things literally in seconds as we go through and go, yeah, that works, this is in the right place, it's a good feel. We're literally making thousands of decisions every minute, and you come out of the house, and you've normally got the floor plan, you've got photographs, and then you can actually start to absorb all the information, and then you start making value adjustments and start going, well, the house a few doors down the road had a theatre, and ours doesn't have a theatre. Or it's got a really nice outdoor area or fresco area, and you start adding, subtracting, and then you start to actually find yourself, arriving at some value. Outcomes. So, so if that answers your question somewhat.
Yeah, this stuff's fascinating, Ben. It just occurred to me that, 24 years down the track here, I am learning from you. Like this stuff is really, really good, and I'm really so glad you've taken the time to, share this stuff with me.
Yep. I
went through a property in Lathlane last weekend, I think it was, and it was a I'm going to say. Might be that late 1970s, early 1980s sort of brick. It was a kind of a tumbled brick, a light brown brick.
Not the calcite sort of white.
No,
sort of brick. No.
It was a sort of a sort of a light chocolate colour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sort of like a clinker brick sort of thing, but
not as dark as clinker.
Not like the Kalamunda.
Yeah.
Special.
No, not Kalamunda special. And it had a lot of face brick, which is not to everyone's liking, but when it's done well, you can actually get away with it.
Yep.
It had the typical late 70s, early 80s dropped living areas.
Yeah,
so
the recess.
To me, that's just a ridiculous thing to do these days because it's just is a trip hazard.
Well, it's crazy in a way. You drop the floor rather than raising the ceiling. Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
It
was an art.
So you end up getting a higher ceiling.
Yeah, it was
which is sort of why they did it, to give a feeling of space.
It was a 70s or 80s architectural thing that I think was just a stupid idea, but hey, whatever.
Trends in the day.
So you could put up with the sunken lounge, but the bedrooms were minuscule.
Right.
They were tiny.
Yep.
And which is kind of leading me to the question is, and so therefore this is a leading question. Are there things in a home that are so bad, as in small bedrooms, that you just can't change that affect the value?
Yeah, definitely. So there's sort of the list of things that would come back to like bedroom sizes, or it might be lacking or a really, really small bathroom and a really small ensuite.
Yeah.
Can be a real problem, and it takes tens of thousands of dollars off the value. So I recently had the experience of selling a house with very small bedrooms, and went to the effort of had a king bed in the bedroom at the time of selling it, and I actually dismantled the king size bed, and I put in a double bed, a double bed with side tables, and took out every single piece of furniture in that room just to try and make it look larger. Yeah. But it came up time and time again as the reason a lot of buyers, but somebody bought it in the end. Yeah. So there'll be a price point which it meets, the point at which someone's willing to trade off the smaller bedrooms. Yeah. And they had a very young family. Their kids were very little. So normally kids don't, little toddlers don't need big rooms. Mm-hmm. So sometimes smaller bedrooms suit real young.
It's a compromise that they can make at that stage of their life.
Teenagers, that it might be. Yeah.
So rooms that are the wrong size are just the wrong size. So an ensuite that is too small is never going to get bigger. I saw one down in Mozzie Park just recently. Lovely home, but the walk-in robe was small. Like it was a double-sided walk-in robe, like two-person walk-in robe, but wasn't enough room in there to get changed.
Yeah.
So you had to take your clothes out and then go back in the bedroom, get changed, and then go back into the robe. Rooms that are the wrong size, and that impacts on value.
Yeah. It's hard though in the western suburbs sometimes at say Mozzie Park. You're looking at a house that's say $2 million, and the land is worth 1.8.
Yeah.
So suddenly you're at a point where,
is this house actually worth anything?
Well, the real issue is that there's not a lot of value in the house, and it's sort of, if you don't buy it, somebody else will, and they'll probably knock it over,
Yeah.
or rebuild it. It does really depend on, but certainly if you build a new house and you get something wrong, that's like a room size, or you get something in the wrong place, it does make a huge impact. So.
Now, talking about rooms that are the wrong size, you can also go the other way and make rooms kind of too big or like too ostentatious and sort of unbalance the home. And I'm thinking of the place in City Beach where the upstairs area was just this stunning master suite with its own kitchen and like everything about it was beautiful.
Yeah.
But it was almost OTT for what that home was.
Look, I think the same can apply. I think if you get the, you're trying to make allowances for your buyer, and you're trying to wow them with a huge big room and try and dress it up. It's I guess that's the interesting thing with renovations. Is quite often people just engage a builder, and they maybe don't think about engaging an actual architect or a designer or somebody who's got some expertise. They just say, we want to come in and we want to make that room bigger, and we want to add an ensuite here, and we want to do this here. Mm-hmm. And a builder's just going to go, yep, that's what it's going to cost, and they go ahead and do it. And we see it time and time again. My biggest thing at the moment that I would let people know is, now is the time where advice really does pay in buying real estate and renovating real estate and investing. It doesn't cost that much to get good advice. We charge somewhere around $350 an hour. You can come in and bring all your, you're trying to buy in a suburb. Mm-hmm. Look, we're not going to be able to get a valuation done fast enough in this market, but we can arm you with the evidence to know what's the limits of that you can push things. And that's again why a buyer's agent or a designer, or when you start to do works on a property, get some independent advice. Before you start,
architects are worth their weight in gold. Like people are a bit scared of architects. They seem expensive, but the result that you can get out of a home, that you make use of a space much better if it's well designed.
Yeah, even a drafty or designer, and there's plenty that come out on an hourly rate and just will give you a portfolio of ideas and pictures and things to colour palettes and things like that. So there's no excuse in nowadays if you're starting a renovation project or looking to do improvements on, do due diligence, get in somebody before you buy. Is that wall structural? Can I take it out? Can I improve the size of the ensuite? Some of them are, that's an easy fix. Some of them are, well, that's a structural wall. I'm going to have to put a beam in. I'm going to, so you can find out about these things earlier rather than later. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can, although it's not advisable, but you can put a clause in a contract that, you have a due diligence thing. But
it's
I doubt
bloody tough in this market, man.
I doubt you'd compete, but certainly more so in development and
in your development land, it's more anticipated that would happen.
And in some of your commercial type purchases, I think that's more commonplace. So
So what else? What other factors do you take into account, Ben?
So I was going to often get, you asked me earlier, what's the common question you get asked at a barbecue when they find out you're a valuer. Obviously, other than what's the property market doing right now? You have to be under a rock if you don't know what that's doing at the moment. But the second question, where to buy, what do I buy, and where do I buy?
Yeah.
Look, even for me, I find that question hard to answer, but I would probably start by saying it's not so much where to buy, it's what you're buying and the price point that you're buying it in. So if you can stick to something that's at or under the median house price, if you can get something that maybe that's near the new Metronet stations, or we've got increased transport options coming up. Metronet's going to improve a lot of connectivity down in our Armidale, Midland regions. So there's a whole lot of areas that are going to get opened up to better transport, which haven't had it. So you're trying to find those factors that are, not already known about, I suppose. So the typical factors of most people know where there's a good place to buy, but you're trying to find those places that maybe have some room to grow, some growth. So at the moment, our best performing suburbs are our outer mortgage belt areas.
So your Gosnells, Armidale, Kelmscott.
Yep. And mainly because of their affordability. So they've had the biggest jump in because they just sit that much below the median house price.
Yeah, those eastern states investors that you referenced earlier, they see a $450,000 3x2 in Gosnells and go
rented for $600 a week, and they go, "I'll have 3 of them."
Yeah, and it would be nothing for them to go, "You want 475 for it? Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 500." It's like, and so there's just that flippant. Well, I'll give you extra for it just to get your name on the title. There's your rapid capital growth. That's what's it would seem to me that's what's driving it.
There's just the East Coast is they've got a very challenging barrier to entry. Just the high prices over there. So our market just looks incredibly attractive, and we're starting to push 5% yields in residentials. Some north of 6%. If you've got a property that's fully furnished, potentially might have $3,000 or $4,000 worth of fantastic furniture in it, and it's fully furnished, and it's a very real situation where a lot of renters maybe don't have furniture, or they can't get it easily. You can furnish a house with second-hand furniture very cheaply, very easily. A lot of these, we know we've got population coming into the state daily. Yeah. You give them a house that's furnished and got some decent furniture in there, you will get a better rent return for a very little outlay, little bit of extra work. So, investors have to can capitalise and just go a little bit above and beyond, and you can do a bit better than your average person. So
so in terms of those areas that are doing where to buy, and that I see this on some of the Facebook groups that, my God, there's some stupid questions asked on some of these Facebook groups.
Really?
Yeah. My God, Ben, it's just like, people are asking questions they should be asking their accountant, around tax advice. Right. And then they're asking questions, well, what suburbs are going to go up in value in the next 12 months? Honestly, how would you know? Like, who?
Yeah, it's
absolutely impossible without, no one knows that, the answer to that question.
Well, look, I prefer to certainly try and control the factors that you can, which is with the type of property you buy, with the accommodation, the block size. Maybe it's looking whether it's got some up potential for value add opportunities. That's where I'm. If I was looking for a property for a buyer, be looking at, and what are their needs in 4 or 5 years' time. One
of the things I say to especially investors, well, and even owner occupiers, well, where should we buy? Well, I think the the best way to answer that is, let's buy the best quality asset your budget can afford.
It should be that from the get-go, shouldn't it?
Yeah, well, often it's...
and then would you have to argue that it obviously depends on the risk profile, but sometimes residential property may not be the... there's other...
Yeah, there are
other assets out there.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and in fact, some investors, I would venture to say that they would be better off buying shares.
Well, we're certainly buying in at a low now, aren't we?
Well, let's not get into the realm of giving investment advice. But in terms of asset class, Ipsos did some... They created what I think was called a livability index.
Okay, that just came out a few days ago, didn't it?
And they identified what are the factors that make a suburb livable.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think Subiaco took out the crown of most livable suburb for Perth.
Very possibly, because there are factors such as can you walk around the suburb at night and feel safe? Mm-hmm. Access to dining, entertainment, and shops. Yep. Ticks that.
Shade is one of them.
Yes, shade is a big factor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Established street trees, and Subiaco is beautiful in that regard. Mm. Proximity to transport has that. Proximity to the CBD and employment centres, it has that. Proximity to natural resources such as parks Kings Park,
public swimming pools, and
and the ocean. It has all of those things. So then you go, okay, well, where in Perth has all those things? And there's basically two areas. Well, there are a few areas that have that. Number one is the Golden Triangle. Number two is Applecross Ardross, in that little section there, a little bit of South Perth, and then Kalamunda, which is a bit of an odd one.
Yeah, but for a hills,
it's actually got most of those things. So, and if you map the long-term capital growth of suburbs, guess which suburbs have long-term capital growth at very high levels? All those suburbs. And so you go, all right, well, if your budget isn't to get you into Subiaco, Dalkeith, Nedlands, the Golden Triangle, what's the closest next best thing that you can get to? Where is that? And okay, well, if my budget is 450, well, then I'm going to end up in Redcliffe, or I'm going to end up in Kelmscott, Gosnells, whatever.
Or where it is, yeah.
So how can I select a really good property within that location? So it's not going to be a stellar. It's not going to be like a stellar suburb ever, but we can choose a good location within that location.
Yeah. Well, one little thing that I probably learnt over time in valuation is that people in Perth love character homes. Yeah. They always, so they're harder to renovate. They are more expensive to. Sometimes you take one on and you end up with a can of worms of work to do. But 9 times out of 10 they'll outperform a house that's doesn't have any character, or of an era where it's just a bit bland. So so those older cottages and things like that is a standout one for me of what to focus on. You just have to do your due diligence of
What about livability and sustainability features in a home and energy efficient? Is that an emerging area, Ben, in terms of valuation practice? Is that
definitely? It's extended probably to as much as if a property's got solar panels and it's got a decent system enough to offset 70% of your yearly use, it will definitely outperform a house that doesn't have it, and we would see at least potentially up to $5,000 difference potentially between, if a system's over and above a standard, you don't get a lot of premium. Most people still go off the basics, house size and aesthetics and finishes, but increasingly, water saving ability and because people are really probably more conscious of costs, ongoing costs.
Do you factor insulation into it?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you?
Yeah. I've done a number of houses where I always talk to the tenant because they're probably the person most likely to give you an honest answer of what a house is like to live in. Oh, the pipes rattle, or it's cold, or it doesn't have good. I can't heat it. My heating bill's $1,000 a year. So a very good, very good indication of no one likes to be freezing cold in winter. So just the basics, insulation, and our climate now, air conditioning is now almost
mandatory.
Yeah, pretty much. If you don't have some form of air conditioning, you're in. I would recommend to a seller of potentially even putting it in prior to sale
as a feature,
because of the impact that might have on marketability.
Ben, I'm just a bit aware of time. I know you've got things to do. We've got the weekend to prepare for. This has been awesome.
Yeah, it's been great to...
It's just like old times, just sitting there shooting the breeze, and I've learned some good stuff out of today.
Well, phone's always available for a chat. So,
and on that subject, Ben, if someone wants to employ your services, get some professional advice, as you said, how would they get hold of you? What's the best way?
Look, the best way is just to head to our website, and we're pretty prominently featured at the moment. We're doing a fair bit of advertising. So,
and what's your website?
So Preston, Rowe, Patterson. If you pop in that to any Google search, you'll find our office will come up.
Okay.
First off the rank. So,
are you inviting connections on LinkedIn?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
I'm happy to take followers and connections. Yep.
Cool.
And I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so appreciate
that's Ben Archibald on LinkedIn, the good-looking one.
Yes. Yeah. So, I'm always happy to chat about property. I think I spent half an hour on the phone the other day to a guy who's wants to buy a slice of land off his neighbour because he wants to improve his view. Yes. So all tricky stuff like that we get asked about. So,
Ben, this has been great. Really good stuff, and yes, so that's it. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks again, Ben.
Thanks, Pete.
Take care.
Right.
Okay.
All the best.
And that wraps up another episode of the WA Property Q&A. We hope you found our discussion valuable and gained some valuable insights into the world of property buying in Western Australia. Remember, while we strive to provide useful information, it's crucial to consult with the appropriate professionals before making any investment decisions. Don't forget to tune in next week for another exciting episode where we continue to unravel the mysteries of the WA property market. If you have any questions or topic suggestions, feel free to reach out to us. Until then, happy property hunting, and remember to seek the right advice for your personal circumstances. Thank you for listening.